everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Good weekend, guys.
Great weekend.
I love it.
What's up, C?
What up, C? What's happening over
Jenna's
there?
amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, it is.
She was just dragging in here.
Nope.
Oh.
Not me. Nope.
Hey, let's go. That's the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Okay.
Jenna Wolfe, by the way, this weekend, and this will be the last we mention of it, ran 8 consecutive 8-minute miles, a feat that neither Cris Carter nor I thought she could do.
Thank you.
She documented it. I'm wildly impressed.
Wow.
So it turns out a lot of this fitness stuff she talks about actually exists. Very happy for her in that regard.
That is
now
our
that
top
that's out of
story
the way,
today. We're going to talk about it. I started by stretching.
No. It's Jenna. I started you there,
Gotcha.
so now we can do this.
Got a big show on this.
girl.
Monday morning, the Boston Celtics might be the new front runners to land Anthony Davis. By the way, my heart just swelled that you said that, so
No
thank
problem.
you very much. The Knicks are trying to get into the Kawhi sweepstakes, but we got to start with Kevin Durant. The NBA Finals providing us with 2 riveting stories, the series itself, and the availability of one KD. Will he or won't he play? It's become the question du jour. Trailing the Raptors 3-1 in the series, the Golden State Warriors finally got some good news. KD practiced yesterday and is now listed as questionable for tonight's game in Toronto. Nick, I start with you. Is Kevin Durant's return the only chance the Warriors have at this point?
Given how they looked in Game 4, which I know did not shock Cris Carter, but it shocked me. I thought, listen, this is going to be the best flurry of maybe a fading champion, but still a champion. And instead, it was just a fading champion. And to continue the analogy, the Warriors looked like a shot fighter in that third quarter on Friday night. They have to have a paradigm shifter. They have to have something that they can tie themselves to and say, this is why it'll be different. Even if it's not going to be 39, 5 and 5 Kevin Durant, even if his minutes wouldn't be 35 plus minutes, they have to have something much like the one series these Warriors have lost, the 2016 finals to the Cavs. I think the Cavs would have won that series whether Draymond gets suspended or not. But what you hear from David Griffin, what you hear from people in the postmortem of that championship, when they heard Draymond was suspended, there was a feeling within the locker room that, you know what, this could be the thing that changes things, at least for a moment while we get our footing. And that is what happened in that series. They won that game, went back home, then went on the road, the exact path the Warriors would have to go on. They have to have Kevin Durant tonight, not only for on-court purposes, but mentally, that it gives them a reason to believe, Cris, that this game can be different, not than 3 of the previous 4, but than all of the previous 4. Because even game number 2, the one game they won that game because they were brilliant for 6 minutes and outplayed for the other 42. So yes, for them to have a chance, Kevin Durant has to play tonight. First game would be since game 5 against Houston.
What Kevin Durant are we going to get? I think that regardless of what the stats say, I think we can put to bed the question, is Golden State better without Kevin Durant? I think people should stop saying that now. Because if they were, why would they be begging for him to come back? Why would they need him? If they're so much better, if they move the ball better, if they're hard to defend, why? Because they're not. And that's why they're clamoring. That's why you hear players talking about projecting, when he can come back. Clay told us a couple days ago, man, this don't look good if KD can't come back. It's the first time the Warriors in 5 years ever felt that way. Kevin Durant is a special, special basketball player. And we know Golden State, it's been a special situation. But without Kevin Durant, they can be had. They were very, very fortunate this year as far as Houston and the way the bracket fell, that they were playing Portland in the finals. In the Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final, I said Toronto Raptors and Milwaukee Bucks were going to upset whoever won I was picking them in the finals because I thought they were both better basketball teams. The Golden State Warriors, they are not a great defensive team the way they have been the previous 4 years. And even with Kevin Durant coming back, they're not going to be a great defensive team. So I believe the Raptors and the adjustments they have made without a healthy Kevin Durant, even if this goes 7, I still believe Toronto is going to win because KD will not be healthy. He is the only answer that they would be able to have if he was to be able to come back and be 100%. And I know that that's impossible.
Because it's not just Kevin Durant. You're going to need something more from Klay Thompson, even though he gave you 28 or whatever it was on just one game back from the hamstring. Steph Curry had to play, lights out and wasn't great in that last game. You don't know what you're getting from Boogie Cousins at all. What would you really need from Kevin Durant in order for them to get back into the series? Realistically, if as C said, he's not going to give you much on defense.
Well, I don't think we need to compare his production to what Klay or Steph would be doing. What they need is a front court threat. That Van Gundy was hammering this point on Friday, and he was absolutely right. It was incredibly obvious for anyone watching to see the Warriors, once the ball was out of Steph or Klay's hands, and Klay, I thought, played really well. Steph struggled a bit until very late when the game was all but decided. But as soon as it went to Draymond or Iggy or whatever revolving door they had at center, all of whom played poorly on Friday night, the offense died. This has been a bad series for Draymond and Iggy not be able to hit shots. It's been a bad series for Boogie to have the one game and then all of a sudden in game 4 look worse than he had in any of the previous 3. The Warriors, it's tough to... The reason people were initially skeptical of this team was, can you win with just a backcourt? That's what people thought. Then Draymond became the player that he was. Iggy showed everyone what championship medal that he has. But right now in this series, Iggy is a lesser version of himself than he has been in any of the 5 other series. Draymond's shot has been broken all year long and is not being fixed in these finals. And all they have is Steph and Klay. So even if KD is just spotting up in the corner, Kevin Durant adds an element to you that makes the Warriors tougher to defend and gives them an extra degree of offense. It's why, even though I had picked the Warriors in 6, that's obviously not going to happen. I'm not going to sit here and say now it's Warriors in 7 because we have 4 games of evidence Toronto's flatly better. They need something to shift the paradigm. That would be Kevin Durant taking the court.
I just don't see it, though. I don't see a guy that's been out a month of basketball with a torn calf. They said it was a strain, but a strain, you're back before 4 weeks. I'm going to say it. He's got a torn calf, and there's a reason why people that follow the NBA have doubted his returning. There's a reason why someone watched him work out on Thursday before game number 4 and said, man, I don't see him coming back. A guy with a professional trained eye, and I respect his opinion. I've been saying this all along. I thought Kevin Durant was not going to play anymore. So now, even if he's able to come back for game 5, let's not forget Boogie Cousins, because Boogie Cousins gave us a great example of what happens if you miss 45 days. He came back. How many minutes did he play in that first game?
8.
Everyone just assumed, you know something? In game number 2, he's going to be that much better. You know what, Steve Kerr? We're going to start him. How'd that work out? How has he been in the previous games? You cannot miss all of that conditioning. You cannot miss all of that on-court performance that you typically would get late in the season and think that you can join a championship competition and there not be some letdown. Kevin Durant has not been on the basketball court, and he hasn't guarded anyone. He hasn't run 94 feet, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. He hadn't done all those things. So now we think he can do this 3 times in 6 days? Like, that's what's getting ready to happen? Look, listen, sports is difficult. And at the highest level, it's the most difficult. And the one thing that's troubling to all athletes is injuries, how to overcome them. And there's a difference between a woo-woo and an injury. A woo-woo is what Klay had. A hamstring, he was able to strap it up tighter and play the next game. This is an injury that's had him out for a month. Let's respect where they are, and this is the NBA Finals, and what it would take to be able to muster up the type of performance that he hadn't even been on to get on the court, 0 minutes in over 2 rounds of basketball. So I don't think he's going to have a huge impact.
Woo-woo? It's 2 woos.
Yes, that's what you tell your kids. That's woo-woo.
Yeah, I guess all my kids had hamstring injuries all this time. Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Kawhi Leonard continues his stellar play in Game 4 of the Finals Friday night. Scored 36 points, had 12 rebounds in a 105-92 Toronto win. CC, put a grade on Kawhi's Game 4 performance.
As good as you can get, an A+. And I know there's certain people that may not want to give Kawhi that because of what happened to him in San Antonio, but those people were all wrong. I'm still waiting on apologies. I'm accepting it. Kawhi don't care. But, Chris, I'm taking apologies for all those who've been blasting Kawhi, blasting his name. Oh, those
apologies to Kawhi Leonard, care of Chris Carter.
Yeah, and those who don't even want to say his name, call him by a number. A+. getting ready to be MVP to the finals, then what excuse you going to have?
A+. I mean, you said it better than I could. He was sensational on both ends, and nothing has encapsulated these NBA Finals than the two possessions. Kawhi Leonard 3, Kawhi Leonard steal, Kawhi Leonard 3, turn a deficit into a lead, and they never looked back. He's been the best player on the court in these NBA Finals, and if we're being honest, he's been the best player in the NBA these NBA playoffs.
Back to the NBA now. The Raptors are now just one win away from their first title in franchise history. They were stoic after beating the Warriors 105-92 in Game 4 Friday night. What do we mean by stoic? Let's let Kawhi Leonard explain.
We're focused. We know that it doesn't mean anything until it's someone that has 4 wins. You never know what could happen, and you got to take advantage of it and, don't get overly hyped and excited. Still a great basketball team on the other side. And I think that was our mindset. We had a goal going out there, and, we accomplished it, and now we have to do it in, possible 3 games. Got to win 1.
Okay, maybe it's just me. He actually looks depressed at that press conference. I'll take that laugh over the stoicism any day. See, how have the Raptors neutralized the Warriors in the NBA Finals?
Well, they've done it a number of different ways. I think that, and I'm not ashamed to say it, we missed out a lot on the Raptors. When the Eastern Conference, if I could give you 3 storylines to let you know there's going to be a team in the finals going against the Warriors. They're going to be up on the Warriors 3-1. I'm going to give you 3 teams from the East. And let me tell you where we're going to start. Giannis, this is his year with Milwaukee. They have a great regular season, 60 wins. And your next pick's going to be, Philadelphia, the talent that they have. Man, it's going to be hard. If one team has made it this way, Joel Embiid, if it's been led by one player, Joel Embiid has put this team on his back. And your next one, I think the Celtics are going to be involved in the conversation. There were more people picking the Celtics and those other teams than there were Toronto Raptors. So the rest of the world can join me in what we missed on the Raptors. We missed how good they would be as far as defensively in the playoffs. We missed as far as Marc Gasol when they acquired him, that they would be the best 3-point shooting team since the time they were acquired. We totally missed that. And once we got into the finals, we missed that they would have the best player on the court in Kawhi Leonard. And all those things that I'm not ashamed to say, we missed it. But it's led to one of the great stories we have in the NBA Finals as far as Toronto Raptors and what they've been able to accomplish. Their coach, who is no experience compared to, you're talking about a mismatch, a tale of the tape. But he has made the type of adjustments that not only have them the lead in this series, but turned around the Milwaukee series when he put Kawhi on Giannis after being down 0-2. And this is the only team they've been down every series. First series, Orlando, they're down. Second series, Philadelphia, they getting ready to get moved on. Philadelphia could go up 3-1 on them. Kawhi hits the buzzer beater game number 7. We know they were down 0-2, and then this one, they were 1-1. It's an amazing run that they've been on, and it's just okay for people to say it, because I missed it. And Kawhi's my guy, and I've been watching Kawhi all year. I didn't know if he was going to be able to peak Kawhi, like he had said, that these 82 games are just practice, and I'm going to be ready for the playoffs. He's been sensational, and I missed it.
Well, and you might have missed it during the regular season, but you picked up on it earlier once the playoffs started than just about anybody, certainly earlier than I did. And the point you're making about how the series have started for them and then how they've unfolded, that to me is the biggest testament to what Nick Nurse has done. Nick Nurse, couple games into Orlando, once the series goes on the road, okay, we're down or we're even 1 apiece. Not going to lose again. We have made some adjustments. Against Philly, down 2-1. Make some adjustments, win 3 of 4. Against Milwaukee, down 0-2 and look dead. Because game 1 was close in that series. Game 2, they got blown out. Milwaukee had won 10 of 11, looked like a juggernaut. Don't lose again. Against Golden State, tied 1 apiece. Then go to Golden State's building and crush them in what could be the last 2 games ever at Oracle. Yes, the players get a ton of credit for everything they've done, but the coaching adjustments once you're within a series have 96 minutes or so to play each other and say, oh, this is the adjustment I need to make. This is the change I need to make. And now that we have the benefit of looking at it through the lens of the last 2 months, I thought Micah Adams pointed this out on Twitter, and I hadn't thought about this. Think about who they've gone through. First round of the playoffs. If you're a really good team, you're not going to play a really good team. But Orlando did have the best record in the conference.
Surprised a lot of people.
Over the final third of the season.
Yep.
Final 28 games. Best record in the conference. The next round, a team that had 2 All-Stars, then acquired another All-Star at the deadline, or early in the season, and acquired another fringe All-Star at the deadline. That's who they beat. Milwaukee, the team with the MVP and the best record, and the only team in the league that's going to have home court over Toronto. They go through them, and now Golden State, the 2-time defending champions. Like, this path has been very similar to the one Dirk and the Mavs, another team that snuck up on people, by the way, took in 2011, where it's just, you go through KD and Russ, you go through Kobe, you go through LeBron and the Heat, where it's just great team after great team that you dispatch of. And much like that Mavs team, we probably will not give them full credit until it's over. And honestly, if and when they win the series tonight, a lot of the commentary will be about the team that lost, like it was for those 2011 Mavs, rather than the team that potentially is going to win a championship.
I think the reason a lot of people were down on the Raptors in this series, we talked about it, was experience. One team has all the experience, and one team had none of the experience. But after Game 4, one team looked like they were locked in, they were focused. We talked about them being stoic, but they were really committed and they were all on the same page. And the other team looked like they had sort of given up, the team that had been there and done that already. Talk about the difference in approach to the actual game. I don't think a lot of us thought we would see that from the Raptors as much as we would from the
Well, this
Warriors.
is the thing. If you analyze the game based on the results, I think you're really doing a disservice. You have to... This is a better basketball team than we anticipated, and they forced the Warriors into playing the way they did. They dismantled their front court. From the center and the forwards, they have dominated the basketball game, and they don't have an answer for Kawhi Leonard. Clay can't guard him. Draymond can't guard him. So Kawhi's ability to be an elite scorer on the offensive end going with their defense. We saw in game number 4, they scored 92 points. This is the first time the Warriors didn't score 100 points in the playoffs, and they only did it 5 times this year. But guess who did it to them twice? The Toronto Raptors have done it to them. So there are a number of things that they have done from the centers where we thought, we had people come on the show to say, oh, Gasol, he'll be unplayable in this. Oh, really? Well, Serge Ibaka, when's he going to show up? They've been a tremendous advantage. So they're not running pick and roll. Now they're running pick, and instead of popping, they're going right down the middle and taking the heart out of the defense right from the free throw line, which is a Nick Nurse adjustment. So, man, this has really been a tremendous series. And you have to give more credit to Toronto and what they forced Golden State. With all that 100 games of playoff experience, it doesn't matter if I'm better than you. If I keep making adjustments, which Nick Nurse has, and they have the best player on the court in Kawhi.
And Jenna, to your point, what we saw in Game 4 reminded me of something Vincent Goodwill says you see sometimes in playoff series, and we've never seen it from Golden State. And I'll be honest, even if they were to lose this series, I never thought we would see it from Golden State, which is you felt it, that Golden State is realizing, oh, they're just better than us. Like, that's what happened in the third and fourth quarter of Game 4 when they started taking hope shots. When they rush up the court, take a push, take a three. Rush up the court, take a bad shot, because it's like, man, we're gonna need some luck, some good bounces to get back in this. Golden State, when the Rockets were up 3-2, when the Cavs came back to win, they never thought any of those teams were better than them. You almost felt, to me, watching that game, a sense of resignation from the Warriors.
Right.
Like, what?
That's
what
the
answer do we
word.
have? We played a great first half, and we're up 4. Yeah. We had all this crowd, all this energy, and we go into the halftime up 2 possessions. It seemed like they were like, man, I don't know what the answer is.
At some point, we got to stop being surprised. We played 4 games. They played 16 quarters. The Toronto Raptors have outscored them 13 quarters.
Wow.
All right? We went over last week. It was 10-12. Oh, they won the first quarter, and Toronto shot the ball awful, was able to recover to win the next 3. 13
of 16.
I mean, it's amazing. It's been dominant.
Today on FS1, we got two great matches coming your way as the FIFA Women's World Cup continues from France. Coverage begins at 11 a.m. Eastern as Argentina battles Japan, followed by Canada taking on Cameroon. Don't miss a moment of the action on FS1 or on the Fox Sports app. Time now for Say What? Friday night, Klay Thompson was back in action, Game 4, scoring 28 points. And yesterday, he was doing his best Kawhi impression at the podium. Say what?
We all know about Game 6 Klay, but there might not be a Game 6. Are we going to see a Game 5 Klay instead now?
Do you think that was intentional?
I don't know.
I feel like it had to be, because I've heard Klay Thompson laugh, and that's not Klay Thompson's laugh. I think Klay was having a little fun at Kawhi's expense. I don't think it was anything mean-spirited, but that had to be intentional.
I don't think so. I don't think Klay made up his mind before the press conference. Someone's going to say something that's going to trigger a Kawhi laugh. I think
he was dared to do it by someone. I think someone said, whoever can sneak in a Kawhi laugh gets $5. That's what I think happened.
I think that's exactly what goes on in NBA locker rooms. I double dog dare you for $5.
We used to do that at our old station.
At NBA locker rooms.
If you could get a line from the Honeymooners into the show, I never heard of the show, you will get this. Wait, what? Did we go off the rails?
I can't. To the moon, Alice. My God.
Go.
Did you have any other black people that worked at that station? Was there any diversity?
There was. A good friend of ours, a mutual colleague.
Our
Kurt Menefee and I worked together on that show.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
Thank goodness. Please, for the love of God.
Time for some stories to start your
Just like our old workspace, The Office.
Sponsored
to a Honeymooners line.
By Gillette Clear Gel.
Sure, that's what Klay and Steph were talking about.
Kevin Durant
Kawhi's
practiced
laugher.
yesterday and is
Get
now
a line
listed
from I Love Lucy in there.
I did think it was a little dated.
Okay.
Listed as questionable tonight in Toronto. Question is, how effective will he be? All right, Nick, buckle up. Is Durant's return the only chance for the Warriors now?
Yeah, and the path is actually simple. Now, it's almost impossible, but they can tell themselves it's simple. Get KD back. Win tonight. You then go back, final game ever at Oracle, win or lose. Close that thing out with a win, and then Game 7 for a chance for everybody on the Warriors to exercise the only demon they have in this 5-year run, blowing a 3-1 lead of their own that necessitated them bringing in Kevin Durant. Now, I do not think any of those things are going to happen, but the first step for any path to victory for the Warriors involves Durant taking the court tonight.
This is what I worry about, because before the series, none of the Warriors thought they needed KD to be able to win the championship. Now that we've gotten in it, you've heard Klay and others, Draymond, say, yeah, we miss KD. Steph, man, he's a special player. What if KD's not at 100%? So then the players see him. They put all that energy in him being out there and being 100%. Do they lose the little bit of faith that they have? You can't put too much into them relying on Kevin Durant. They know he's not practiced. He's only going to be a shell of himself. So I worry about the mental state of the Warriors if they don't see him on the court at 100%.
All right, well then, with KD questionable and Klay Thompson working his way back from injury, the brunt of that work now falls to Steph Curry. Game 4, he scored 27 points on 22 shots. He looked exhausted for much of the game. Warriors now sit on the brink of elimination tonight. Nick, what do they need from Steph if they're going to win Game 5?
I mean, not quite Game 3, Steph, but close to it. And keep in mind, in Game 3, they got Game 3, Steph, and they still lost that game. But, I mean, yeah, this is what happens at times, and there are other guys we have heavily criticized for this. But in the NBA Finals, where in one game you unload the clip, so to speak, that wears on you for the next game because Steph did look tired. He did look fatigued. He didn't look like he had the legs under him that he had in Game 3. The only one day of rest between the only time in the series where you have to play 2 games in 3 days came at a rough time for the Warriors and for Steph. But what do they need from Steph? What they got in 2015 Game 5, series tied 2 apiece, 37 points, 17 in the fourth quarter. They need that type of performance from Steph, and I don't know if he has it in him against this defense.
Didn't they have a bench then?
They did have a bench, though.
Oh, okay. So even if Steph goes off like he did in game number 3, because they don't have a bench and because they're bigs, that means their center and their forwards aren't playing well, it's hard for them to be able to win. So even if Steph has a historic game, the other guys don't have confidence shooting, and you have to be able to make shots. Outside of Klay and outside of Steph, who else is going to be able to make shots and with a big show up? That's been a huge problem.
All right, moving on to Kawhi Leonard now. He has dominated the finals thus far, and teams have taken notice as the quest to woo him has begun. According to reports, the Knicks are confident they'll get a meeting with Leonard in the hopes of convincing him to come to New York. See you buying that Kawhi could end up here?
I feel like besides his overall experience in Toronto, if he's not going to end up in Los Angeles, which is his home, then why wouldn't he come to New York? If you look at it from a marketing standpoint, absent of what Toronto can do from a contract standpoint, if he goes anywhere else but California, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in New York City.
I know it's very hard to pin Kawhi Leonard down on just about anything, but I do feel like we know publicly there's 3 places he could be playing basketball for next year. The Clippers, who to me are the clear favorites, even if the Raptors win. The Raptors, who are as close as they've ever been. And then a third team that probably is less than 10%, but the only other team on that list I believe to be the Knicks. I don't think the Lakers are a viable option for him. I think it's Clippers, Raptors, and then coming up in the third spot, barely there, is the Knicks, but they're on the list, and other teams like Dallas that has cap space are not going to be on the list.
All right, well, the reason everyone wants him, Kawhi has been lights out this postseason. He's averaging over 30 points per game in the finals. See, is Kawhi now the best player in the NBA?
I'm not ready to say he's the best player in the NBA, but I think that he will be in the conversation. I think it brings so much intrigue to free agency, the way he's played, how he's developed his game, and it really takes you back into, it's really sad how he left San Antonio, because San Antonio's been a great organization. There is no coach that's coaching in the NBA I have more respect than Popovich, and it really boiled down to Kawhi was concerned about his body. Now, behind the scenes, the Spurs did ask him. They weren't going to max him out. They did ask him to take a reduction compared to a max contract. So that was one of the things that I haven't talked about, because that wasn't a priority, because he still might have stayed there if they didn't have the problem from a medical standpoint. So for me to see Kawhi back playing the type of basketball, because he's not about the fanfare. He's about getting to the gym, working on his game. And last year at this time, when people were talking about where's Kawhi want to go, he wants to be teamed with superstar, they made it clear to me, it don't matter. Just give me 4 guys that want to play basketball. I feel like in my head-to-head with LeBron James, I'm just as good. In my head-to-head with KD, I'm just as good. My head-to-head with Steph, I'm just as good as them. I just want the opportunity to get back healthy, to compete against them for world championships. And that's what he has. So I'm happy for him. I know the type of person he is, and regardless of what, if you're vocal or not, when people say mean things about you that aren't true, they're hurtful. And what happened to Kawhi? It hurt him. But he turned it into fuel to make him a better player, because he knew that it was not true. He wasn't trying to force his way out of San Antonio until they told him that he should be out there playing and didn't believe him personally. That's when everything went haywire there for the Spurs.
If I'm going to be fair here, going into the playoffs, we said there were guys who were eligible to grasp that golden ring, so to speak, if they led their teams to a championship and if the team won the championship based in large part to their individual excellence. Giannis was on that list. James Harden, who no one ever wants to give any respect to, was on that list. Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were in a tougher spot because they were going to have to be individually exceptional to stand out from the other person. They were on that list. And Kawhi Leonard was on that list. And there is no argument about who's been the best player in these NBA playoffs. That argument is over. Kevin Durant was looking like it was clearly going to be him. But you know what? He got hurt. And that's not his fault, but you also don't get special dispensation for that. He's now missed almost as many games as he's played in these NBA playoffs. And so, in fact, now do the math, he's now officially missed more games than he's actually played in these NBA playoffs. So you don't get special credit in that regard. Giannis was playing great until Kawhi started guarding him. And then his team lost 4 games in a row. Giannis was good but not great, and they went home. Joel Embiid had a chance to put himself in that conversation, a little dark horse. And then Kawhi hit that shot. And
Also,
made
Joel Embiid
cry.
was consumed with explaining to the media what was wrong with him every day. He wants to get massages out on the court to be around the crowd. Kawhi's got some injuries, but he won't let us know what it is. I know exactly what it is. He's got tendonitis in his left knee, which caused his right quad to give him some problems. But he's not talking about it. Different approach.
Different approach. And so the answer to me is Kawhi gets the title. And do I believe that Kawhi's better than LeBron right now? I don't. But LeBron's not playing. And a lot of people didn't believe in 07 that LeBron was better than Kobe. But Kobe's team went home in the first round, and LeBron took a group of guys to the NBA Finals. So guess what? LeBron, for the first time ever, took the title right then and has held it up until this very moment today. But that title might be handed off figuratively in about 12 hours to Kawhi Leonard because he's earned it. Now, other guys can try to wrestle it back, and we could have a very interesting dynamic if and when KD leaves of all these guys having their own teams with similar supporting casts go fight for it. But if you lead this team to the NBA Finals with an excellent supporting cast, but not another superstar, with no championship history because of how great you've been, that's how this thing works in the NBA. Even if it's an unlikely candidate, you get to be the guy. Kawhi Leonard, a 15th overall pick of a draft on his second team after having his name drawn through the mud, 9 months after all that, gets to be the best player in the world from the public perspective if they finish it off tonight. And if not, they'll have a chance on Thursday. And if not, they'll have a chance on Sunday. He's got 3 bites at the apple, and I'd be shocked at this point if they don't make at least one of them count.
All right, well, then let's move from there to the other side of the finals with the Golden State Warriors, who now sit on the brink of elimination. A lot of questions surrounding the core of this Golden State team, which continues to age and which might lose KD this summer to the East Coast. Andre Iguodala stressed that win or lose, he would be around for one last ride.
You know, I'll be here next year for sure, and I'm pretty confident that we'll have our core back, and we'll try to make another run at it. But our key right now is to focus in on tomorrow's game and the things we can do to try to keep the season going.
All right, Nick, let me ask you, what do you think about this Warriors dynasty? Is the dynasty on the line tonight against the Raptors?
Well, at least temporarily, for sure. Now, next year they come back and win the title. You're allowed to lose a championship during a dynasty and have the dynasty keep going. The Warriors, we don't talk about this dynasty like it started 2 years ago. We talk about it in 2015. They lost in 2016, and it's still part of the run. But when you watch this team right now, a lot of us, myself included, have said they lose Kevin Durant, they go into next year still as the favorites in the West. And by the way, Vegas has them as the favorites to win the whole thing, big favorites for next season. But when you watch them in the fatigue and the lack of depth and the way these 5 straight 100-game seasons are wearing on them, do you really look at them and say next year is going to be their 6th trip to the finals? Next year they're going to break their own modern NBA record? And if KD does leave, reinforcement's not coming. You know why Iggy's coming back? For a number of reasons. But there's 17 million of them specifically.
Oh, okay.
That's his money. He's got 17 coming to him. Draymond's got 18 coming to him. Clay, unless the Warriors are out of their mind, they're going to max him. He's got 30 million coming to him. And Steph's got 40 million. What's 17 plus 18 plus 30 plus 40? Jenna, you told me this morning it's 105.
That's what I said quickly without even thinking.
105. Salary cap's 109. I'm just assuming Sean Livingston's going to retire. He's got 8 million coming to him, but he might retire, leave it on the table. There's no way to have this team demonstrably be better next year. It's not no light years ahead move.
Well, who do you think's coming out of the West next year?
Well, I mean, I got to see what everything happens.
Well, let's do this. Denver's coming back. They're one of the youngest teams in the NBA. San Antonio is going to be a fit for someone just because of the way they do things. LeBron is going to get someone in Los Angeles. The Clippers might have Kawhi.
Don't they
Houston,
get to be the favorite?
Portland.
But you still think all of those teams have the same shot as the Warriors coming back next year without KD?
You got to get through 3 rounds. The wear and tear is going to be totally different. So I'm going to tell you what they don't want. Even if they do get to the finals, they don't have anybody on their roster that can stop Kawhi. So no matter where Kawhi is, they don't have no answer for him and KD. They've been practicing with KD the last 3 years. They ain't got nobody can stop KD. So if KD happens to go to the Clippers and or the Knicks, so even if they get to the finals, yeah, the dynasty is in jeopardy. Yeah, I mean, their best they got a better chance of winning this year than they do next year.
Even down 3-1, because as you would say, they've already, you can look at it as they need 4 wins, but to win the championship, you need 16 wins, and they've got 13 of them already.
Yes.
They've got the first 3 rounds and a quarter of this series taken care of. I don't want to just push to the side where Kawhi goes. Kawhi gets to be the favorite. Unless he goes to a nothing team, which he won't. I guess if he went to the Knicks totally by himself. Why would we look at what Kawhi's done in Toronto? And if he goes to the Clippers...
So if Kawhi goes to the Clippers, do you think the Clippers would come out of the West next year?
Well, I'm not ready to make my 2020 NBA Finals predictions yet.
I'm just trying to put it up against
What
the
I'm
Warriors.
saying is that if Kawhi goes to the Clippers, we'll see how the rest of free agency plays out. They have other money to spend.
We saw the Clippers win 2 games against the Warriors without Kawhi.
This is, to me, the NBA is a who's the... I always say it, and it's frustrated me a bit over the last decade that the rules have changed a bit. But you know what usually determines it? Who's got the best guy? And whoever has Kawhi next year will get to say whether it's true or not. We got the best guy. But the question is about the Warriors dynasty. If you go back-to-back years without winning a title, the dynasty's over.
Even if you get to the finals?
What? If
the Patriots went to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row?
Football and basketball, dynasty rules are different. And again, these rules are not written on a tablet
You made
anywhere,
up the rules.
but I believe these are the accepted rules. The Bulls get a special rule because Jordan walked away in the 2 years they didn't win a title. The Spurs dynasty is the hardest one to talk about because they didn't win ever back-to-back. If the Warriors lose this year and don't win a championship last year, then we look at the dynasty as this 5-year run.
Yes.
And so that would mean it ends tonight. We have to see what happens next year to determine if it actually ends tonight or if it temporarily ends
The point
tonight.
that you made as far as them already losing once in this era, that's what makes it stop with the second one. Also, as a dark horse, be careful, Jenna, New York City. Kawhi Leonard, I believe their chances are better than the less than 10% that Nick Wright gave him a chance. Also, Chris Mannix, who talked bad about the front office of the Knicks, I believe their front office is a lot better than what he talked about. I believe they have a shot to land Kawhi and KD. Like, they're going to get a meeting with Kawhi. And if we believe that KD is already in New York, imagine those 2 players playing together. You think Golden State's the favorite playing against them? No, they can't be. I don't care what Vegas says. And they don't need a whole bunch around them. But that's a real possibility.
Welcome back to First Things First. Look who's here. FS1 NBA analyst Sarah KUSTOK'S
Hey guys,
joins
good
the
to see
conversation.
everyone.
Great
Morning.
to see
Great
you,
to see you.
Sarah.
Are you guys represented by the same firm?
Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
No, but
Don't
my
even-
firm's trying to bring them both on board. I reached
Nick's
out to
personal.
Jenna, my personal
Nick
law
Wright firm.
agent firm.
You're starting
Absolutely.
things up early.
Get right
It's
talent
only
management.
Monday.
Sarah and I don't fit the mold of your
Whoa,
firm's
my mold. Listen, that is
personality.
false.
That is
It's
true.
false. Sarah definitely fits the mold. Jenna, go ahead. The NBA, it's a fake law firm. What do you care?
I want to be part of the fake law firm. The NBA Finals providing us with 2 riveting stories. Sarah, tell me if I'm wrong. The series itself, for one, and the availability of Kevin Durant. Trailing the Raptors 3-1 in the series, the Warriors finally getting some good news. KD practiced yesterday and is now listed as questionable tonight in Toronto. Sarah, is KD's return the only chance the Warriors have at this point?
I'm going to be honest with you, Jenna. Do the Warriors have a chance? Absolutely. Would the return of Kevin Durant bolster another scorer, another playmaker, another guy in the lineup on both ends of the floor that can make an impact? Absolutely. I think Toronto is going to win this series regardless of whether or not Kevin Durant returns. When you look at Kevin Durant and consider the type of player he is, and he was a guy we were talking about as the best player in the NBA at this time prior to getting hurt, he's been out a month. This is an injury that obviously it seems like there's been some difficulties or maybe just some differences in expectations of when he may be able to be back. So I don't think we can expect to see any bit of the Kevin Durant necessarily of what we saw prior to him getting injured. And that's no knock on Durant. It's just a part of trying to come back and reacclimate yourself to the level that these guys are playing at and the NBA Finals. And more than anything, we can talk as much as we want about the Warriors and Kevin Durant, what they need to do. Give credit to Toronto. I'm blown away by how they've been playing. They are an excellent team that seems to be clicking and playing at their very best. So to me, it is less a question about what the Warriors going to look like with Kevin Durant. It's more about what type of team Toronto
I
is.
appreciate how you have so much respect for the injury. It's something that athletes have to deal with. As a fan, it looks so easy, and we get a little confused because what's a strain? What's the difference? Well, Clay strained his hamstring, and he was out. In 48 hours, he was back. It's totally different. I don't believe that Kevin Durant, first of all, has strained his calf. I believe that he's torn his calf, and I'm a person that tore both of my calves, and if he hadn't torn his calf, he would have been back by now. And you don't have a strained calf and out for over a month. So that's what leads me to believe that he's torn his calf. And typically people would say, well, if it was a regular season game or something like that, I might not play. If it was a playoff game, I would play. Kevin Durant couldn't have played. He couldn't have practiced. He couldn't get on the court until yesterday. And the only reason why he got on the court yesterday, because they're down 3-1. All right? If they were up, he wouldn't be thinking about playing. Actually, if the series was tied, he wouldn't be thinking about playing in Game 5. He would be trying to save himself for either Game 6 or a heroic Game number 7. So for me, I've been involved in athletics too long to believe that a person is going to come from sitting on the sideline, I don't care who they are, and get into an NBA final game with the intensity for which they're playing at and think that he's going to be anywhere close to an all-star. Look at Boogie Cousins. When you don't look at what will Kevin Durant most likely look like, don't look at Clay. Look at Boogie Cousins, who missed 45 days. Because when your lower extremities are hurt, very seldom are you able to get the type of cardio. So your lungs, you can't run. You can't get up and down the court. So regardless, he's not going to be free to be able to shoot a jump shot if his legs and everything are bothering him. Like, I just believe it's a huge problem. I believe it's false confidence that they're trying to lean on him. Like, this is the hocus pocus, like, oh, okay, if we can get him back. Toronto, I believe like you, because Kevin Durant won't be 100%. That's why Jenna and I picked them to win the series. He won't be 100% the rest of the way, Nick.
I think Toronto wins this series either way, but I also think at this point, by the way, it was not my preseason or my pre-series prediction like it was there to. But KD has to play for the Warriors to have any shot, and it's not because of just what he adds on the court. That Willis Reed in that famous game, he scored 4 points. The Warriors, when they were down 2-1 to the Grizzlies in the second round of this run, they made a structural adjustment. We're not guarding Tony Allen. The Warriors, when they're down 2-1 to the Cavs that same year in the finals, they made a structural adjustment. We are starting Andre Iguodala and going death lineup from the opening tip. The Warriors down 3-2 to the Rockets. They made a structural adjustment of who they were playing and how many minutes. There's only one card to play. It's playing Kevin Durant. Now, maybe you got to treat him as just a rich man's Alfonso McKinney, not Kevin Durant. But to quote Draymond Green, 75% of Kevin Durant is a lot better than 100% of other people.
And just because Draymond said that, Nick, that don't make it right. Players say stupid stuff all the time, all right? When you can't run on the court, McKinney is better than Kevin Durant. He'll never have the confidence, but his ability to be able to get up and down the court, people say that all the time. Oh, I read that. Listen, if you can't run, you're not the same player. Your mind's not the same. You can't get to the same spot on the court. And all those examples that you use, you know what happened? They played great defense to turn it around. The Warriors can't play great defense, and they definitely can't play great defense with Kevin Durant, who's not 100%.
So how do they...
Well, I'll just say this quickly. I think you're both correct in that. I do think Toronto would have to guard them differently if Kevin Durant's on the floor. You still respect him in a different way. They've been hanging off non-shooters. They've been able to do different things defensively that they wouldn't still do even if Kevin Durant is 75%. I also think they've been able to mix up things defensively, like starting Fred VanVleet in the second half. They can go smaller. They want to push it would put guys in different positions on both ends, but I don't think that he would be able to impact the game
Let's just
in the
say
same
this
type
right
of
now.
ways.
Who's he going to guard in the front court? Just tell me who.
Pascal Siakam.
Oh, so you don't think Pascal can take him off the bounce?
What I think you hang off Pascal Siakam and you give yourself 3 feet and you say if you hit jump shots we lose. Like I think I mean that was my instant answer. I think there are places we were worried about where you were going to guard Clay, and Clay obviously missed 1 day instead of a month, and Clay all of a sudden looked like same old Clay was best player on the court for the Warriors. I don't think you don't play Kevin Durant if he gets cleared because he's going to be a defensive liability. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to come out and score 30 points, but I think the Warriors feel beat. To me, for the first time I've ever seen them in this 5 years, it looked to me like they looked across the court and said, these guys are better than us.
The last 3 minutes of the last game, you could feel it.
These guys are better than us. They need something to shift the paradigm, even if it's fake, even if it's smoke and mirrors, and then they can start convincing themselves, well, we win this game, then we're not going to lose the last game ever at Oracle, even if they obviously could. They've lost both games at Oracle this series. Like, you have to tell yourself a believable story, and I think all of those stories, no matter how they end, begin with KD playing.
This is the thing. When you don't have success, it's easy to create something. But when you've been successful and you know how the recipe works, if you've been baking apple pies the same way, and now all of a sudden I'm getting ready to change it, I'm getting ready to start using artificial apples, trust me, the pie will suffer. This team is not a great team, Nick. They have not been great all year. And for us to think Kevin Durant, after a month, I mean, it took him 2 weeks to find his calf, okay? That was one of the biggest problems. I mean, and I know you respect it. You can't think that intensity, a person can come off the street and get in there and make an impact. We are wrong in thinking.
Back here, first things first, with Sarah Kustok. The Raptors are now just one win away from their first title in franchise history. They were stoic leaving the court after beating the Warriors 105-92 in Game 4 Friday night. And what do we mean by stoic? Well, let's let Kawhi Leonard explain.
We're focused. We know that it doesn't mean anything until it's someone that has 4 wins. You never know what could happen, and you got to take advantage of it and, don't get overly hyped and excited. Still a great basketball team on the other side. And I think that was our mindset. We had a goal going out there, and, we accomplished it, and now we have to do it in, possible 3 games. Got to win 1.
Sarah, is that stoic or is that just Kawhi? I think that's as big as we're going to get from Kawhi. Sarah, how have the Raptors neutralized the Warriors in the NBA
Those
Finals?
2 videos couldn't have painted a better picture of why Toronto's in this position. First of all, if you didn't know what happened in that game,
of course you would have
and
thought
you
they
saw
lost.
the team, because they are so focused. Kawhi Leonard, the way he talks, his approach, his mentality, has bled into everything of which this team is doing, with all the players, with the way they come into every game, with how they are taking the wins and still keeping it very businesslike. How have they neutralized the Warriors? Their defense, first and foremost, I think you probably give the most credit to.
Yes.
Their depth, because at any given point, there's been a different player throughout the course of these finals and even throughout the whole postseason that's had big games and big numbers and has done so in a very efficient, not high-volume shooting way. And then you got a killer like Kawhi, and add in a 4th of Nick Nurse, and a masterful job in which he's figured out ways to adjust, to change in what the teams need on a game-by-game basis. But I think more than anything, there's a confidence in that because of how he's coached throughout this entire season. They have been flexible with what they've done. They understand there is a trust because he's tried different things. But with this team, you see that there is game plan discipline regardless of what they are doing. And they are always on a string. They've got a chemistry within themselves. And I think all of that in its totality has helped get them to this point. And they are just a confident bunch of guys given the experience that they have.
Fred VanVleet talked about after game number 4, they asked him about the 3rd quarter. And he said, you got a lot of confidence when your guy goes out there and takes 2 FU 3-pointers. And it was like, FU. I don't care, Draymond. I'm getting ready to take this. And he said that right there gave them the confidence because at halftime, Nick Nurse talked about the 3rd quarter Warriors. This is when they've been most successful. So how have they done it? They have constantly made adjustments. They made adjustments before the series started. They were going to take advantage of the front court. Marc Gasol, Siakam got them started in game number 1. Even though they didn't win game number 2, they made adjustments in how they were going to go to Oracle. Instead of pick and pop with the 1 and the 5, the center and the point guard, what they started doing was picking and rolling, and they were rolling their center right to the free throw line. So he was either passing to the wing and either sometimes getting the ball back for an easy. They didn't have a response as far as Golden State, as far as their overall rotations and everything. So Nick Nurse has done a tremendous job. And then at the end of that, it's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi had told his teammates and Nick Nurse that I'm using the regular season as just practice. You're going to see me in the postseason shift to a different gear. And they saw that. And they started following Kawhi's leadership, even though they know it's a different type of leadership. It's very, very strange than any other leadership, but they believe in Kawhi. And they believe at certain points of the game that he's going to put his mark on the game in his own type of way. So looking at their veterans, Nick Nurse, no experience, but trading for Gasol, looking at Serge Ibaka, looking at Kawhi, and looking at Lowry. Those 4 players right there, they got plenty of experience, and it's played through the rest of the team that they didn't have to do too much. So it's been a great mixture. Inexperienced coach with some veterans that have some playoff experience and a team that has the hunger to try to win a championship.
And you guys have talked about the totality of the series and big picture, but I want to talk about Game 4 just for a moment, because since it happened Friday, it's now Monday, some of the details of Game 4 kind of get lost in the shuffle. What was so stunning to me about Game 4 was, how did the Raptors beat the Warriors in Game 4? The exact way the Warriors have beaten the whole league for 5 years. Oh, lethargic start. Could be down 20. Oh, wait. At halftime, you're down 4 or 5 points? You're close even though you didn't play that well? And then just a flurry in the third quarter that saps the will of your opponent. That has been the methodology for how the Warriors have gone on this run. They don't have to play a great 48 minutes. The Raptors did not play a great 48 minutes. Offensively, that first quarter was an abomination, but their defense was good enough to keep them close. And then in the second quarter, the game started to get away from them. Then like, wait, what? It's a 4-point game at halftime? And then the flurry in the third. The flurry in the third that made the Warriors look around and start doing things. The last time I saw them play like this was Game 6 against Cleveland in 2016, the game Steph got thrown out of for throwing his mouthpiece, where it's like, wait, what's happening? How did we get here? And they rush up the court and take a bad shot. It's not good shot, better shot, great shot. It's rush up the court, bad shot. Rush up the court, turnover. There was a sequence where they went 8 possessions in that third quarter where Kevon Looney's rushing. The only way they scored was Steph drew a couple fouls. They just looked out of sorts. And while they do have tremendous experience, they don't have any experience facing this type of adversity, not since the 2016, actually not NBA Finals, but Conference Finals against Oklahoma City. And to come back from that, it took an all-time game from Klay Thompson in Game 6 and an epic Steph Curry game in Game 7. I don't think they've got that in them in this series.
And Toronto is deflating for a lot of reasons. I think to your point, that high pick-and-roll action has absolutely carved up the Warriors' defense. But you have a handful of players that are constantly making the right decisions. Kawhi always makes the right decision.
High basketball IQ.
Lowry. So whoever has a ball in their hand, they're always making the right decision, which has put so much pressure on Golden State. They understand when to push. They're doing it off makes and misses. They were patient at the end of the game. Defensively, they always know where one pass away is, where the help is coming from. And with Golden State, they seem out of sorts because it seems like everything is random in how they're playing. So it's a very different perspective than how we typically look at teams.
Why do you think, Sarah, the Raptors sort of snuck up on everyone throughout this road in the East between Philadelphia and then you saw it with Milwaukee and Boston? All of a sudden, here they are on the brink of winning a championship.
Which is important because they've won 7 of their last 8 since going down 0-2 against Milwaukee. But think about that Philly series. They were in Philadelphia down to 1. I mean, they have certainly shown a great deal of poise. That's a great question. I don't know because we always, I think, loop them in, they're one of the better teams teams in the East, but never really being the pick to come out of the East. I know there's some people that had a great deal of respect. I don't know if it's because we didn't see this Kawhi Leonard, and maybe we weren't sure the level he could get to. I don't know if, despite it being a different team, the past failures of Toronto throughout the postseason. What's Kyle Lowry going to do?
All the above.
The bench, all the guys that Fred VanVleet, you can go to Pascal Siakam. This is his first time in this role on this stage, so there was a lot of question marks, and every one of those questions have been answered.
I think the biggest reason is during the regular season, because it was all just a foregone conclusion the Warriors are going to win. And there were hotter, sexier topics in the East: Boston, Philadelphia, and Giannis, followed up by Milwaukee won 60 games. Giannis is going to be the MVP. We didn't believe in Kawhi. We heard all the nightmares about Toronto. We've seen them come up short, even as a number 1 seed. And we didn't believe in Nick Nurse as a playoff coach with the lack of experience. So it just comes from a lack of overall respect for Toronto. And there was no other superstar that we didn't give the type of, he can carry them like Kawhi. We thought Harden could do it, thought Steph could do it, even without KD. Man, we gave everyone else credit that they can do this besides Kawhi. We missed on it. We missed. And when the playoffs started, if we took the top 4 teams in the East, top 4 teams in the West, this team right here didn't have an identity. So once the playoffs started, they lose the first game to Orlando. And since then, they started creating an identity of who they're going to be. And it's about Kawhi, it's about their defense, and it's about Nick Nurse is going to put them in something that will give them a strategical advantage against the opposition.
All right, go.
No, they lose that first game of the playoffs. They lose it. Kyle Lowry has a bagel, and it's like same old Raptors. They get through the Magic, and they fall down 2-1 to Philly, and it's like, same old Raptors, and then fall down 0-2 to Milwaukee. It's just, there have been a lot of, if you did want to believe in Toronto, there have been a lot of exit ramps off that.
Right.
That where it felt like the same old
The
Raptors.
buzzer beater game 7 is they've already had a great playoff.
Yep.
Kawhi Leonard's been great. Let's try to get him to come back. They have no chance against Milwaukee, right, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what Nick told us.
Too.
And Jenna and I was like, Toronto does have a chance. So we missed. People don't want to admit it. You're on TV, you're on radio, on it, Nick on both. Sometimes we miss.
All right, moving on. So the last time we saw Kevin Durant on the court was Game 5 of the Houston series. After much doubt and many questions surrounding his status and availability this series, it appears KD might be coming back, listed as questionable for tonight after finally practicing yesterday. But according to reports, there's growing confusion and angst among some Warriors regarding KD's return. Nick, what do you make of all this?
Now, this I find fascinating because of who's reporting it. Tim Kawakami in The Athletic, first in a column, wrote the column from a few days ago, wrote the kicker to his column was, while nobody doubts the severity of KD's injury, people around the team are starting to wonder if it were Draymond or Iggy or Steph or Clay, would they have missed a month with a calf strain? And then Sam Amick wrote not a column, but a report that alluded to growing angst and frustration and then buttoned it up. But of course, it's not KD's call, it's the trainer's call. But despite that, there's angst among teammates. This is another reason why I think KD has to play tonight, even if it's to show the world, guys, I can't play, because it is the NBA Finals. You saw Klay Thompson miss 1 game and come back and be great, and there will be maybe totally unfair, but if KD goes this entire Finals without ever stepping on the court, people will ask how hard he was trying to get back on the court. I want to be very clear. I'm not one of those people. I've said from the beginning, there are a lot of things you can question about Kevin Durant. How much he wants to play basketball, how much he cares about basketball.
Is not one of them.
Is not one of them. And I believe Kevin Durant could play and tear both ACLs in the same game and still get a maximum contract from every team in the league. That's available. He's not protecting his money. He's not in that situation. Boogie could have been in that situation where, do I want to risk further injury, something like that. KD is so good and young enough that even if he suffered a significant injury, he'd get the same. The Knicks would offer him the same thing as if he hadn't. So I don't think KD is soft pedaling this or anything, but it would appear some members of the Warriors are a little vexed as to why Kevin Durant has not yet made it back on the court. And that is, to me, a very fascinating dynamic on a team that's had a dozen fascinating dynamics throughout the season.
Tim's a very good reporter. I'm very familiar with him. He covered the Eagles when I came into the league. So been knowing him, knowing of his work for a very, very long time. He is wired into as far as the Warriors. But a lot of these things, they just become sub-stories. Like, is there really a story? Are we questioning Kevin Durant? If he could come back, he wouldn't come back. At the time that he got hurt, he was averaging 34 points, playing 39 minutes. There is one thing that Kevin Durant does better than anything else that he does, and that's play basketball. All right? So anyone would be able to say, oh, I believe that he would come back and he couldn't come back. You are missing it. The one thing in talking to people who are trying to pursue Kevin Durant, the one thing that they say, they think Kevin Durant's going to play till he's 40 years old. He's a gym rat, loves basketball, loves to get in the game, get to the gym, get up shots. That's what he's loved. Basketball is his thing. Steph talks about how he's a basketball savant. He's a sponge about basketball, talking about basketball, and how it's been a joy to be around KD for the last couple years to see how he's developed his game. So for me, I'm in the group that I know Kevin Durant can't play. Now, do I believe that there are people close to Kevin Durant that would question if it was smart for him to come back? Yes. Those type of things happen all the time. But I do not believe Kevin Durant has been available for a month. And when we see Kevin Durant, he will not be the player that we saw in the first round in 5 games.
He's also a really sensitive guy. You saw how he's had such a hard time handling all the criticism of his move to Golden State, amongst other things. Imagine the backlash that would come, even if they were not true and he didn't get back on the court. I'm not saying he'll rush back because of it, but there's so many things he's probably factoring in with making this decision whether you come back or not.
And it might all be unfair, but you can feel the growing frustration. Steve Kerr finally saying, you know what, I'm not talking about KD's return anymore. I'm just not doing it. The report, I don't remember if it was Colin Conley or Sam Amick's report in The Athletic, where they mentioned there is some, call it confusion amongst the team as to why KD's not on the bench during the games. He's back in the locker room. When Boogie was out on the bench during the games during his recovery, Clay during his one.
Too.
Now it's one game, so it's different. And so I'm not there. I'm not in that locker room. But I also, sometimes a national reporter parachutes in and gives his take on a situation. These guys have been covering the Warriors all year long, Kawhi'S in particular, and that to me is noteworthy.
And one thing I remember, David West, when he sat here and said, and we talked to him about this current team. And he said, one of the gems I thought of everything he said there have been a number of fires behind the scenes that we put out that didn't nobody know about the last couple years. We were able to get, I said, as big as what they went through, and he repeated it. There were a number of fires that we were able to put out behind the scenes. So typically when you have a group like this, when Jordan was together in his group, there was always a bunch of little stuff. LeBron, we've seen it. Kobe, we've seen it. And now with Golden State, we can't think that it's not going to be there. A little jealousy, a little rumors. Oh, he's getting treated a little bit different. Those are all commonplace with sports.
And what is also commonplace in the NBA is, man, at this time of year, even if you're going to tell me since you've torn your calves it's not possible, the sentiment is, man, gut through it and get out there. The sentiment always is for the NBA in the finals, if you are not dead, you're playing. And that's what Steve Kerr said about Clay. They had to fight to keep him out just the one game. And so for KD, when you hear calf strain, and now it's been 30 days, the entirety of the Western Conference Finals, 4 games of the NBA Finals. This isn't picking on KD.
No.
Any superstar that was out this length of time with this injury, people would start to be saying, man, why is it taking so long for you to get back?
Yes or no, does he play tonight?
Oh, I think he plays tonight.
Same?
Nope, I'm out.
Time now for some stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Kawhi Leonard has dominated the finals thus far, and the quest to woo him has begun. According to reports, the Knicks are confident they'll get a meeting with Kawhi in the hopes of convincing him to come to New York. See, are you buying that Kawhi could end up here?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they will definitely have a meeting with him, and I believe that the Knicks, they have a presentation that they're going to present to him just like they do, and they've spent a lot of time and money to try to, if Kawhi is going to stay outside of California, why wouldn't he come to New York City compared to staying in Toronto? So I do believe that they do have the probability is high. It's higher than people think.
Okay, so I think the Knicks have a better chance than every team in the league except for the Clippers and the Raptors, but I still don't think it's that high of a probability. For me, I would go 50% Clippers, 40% Raptors, 10% Knicks as we sit
Let me
here
tell you what
today.
those other teams don't provide. Kevin Durant. He won't be with the Clippers. He won't be with Toronto. What if Kawhi and KD decide to pair up? Like, I think KD would go for that.
All right, speaking of KD, Kevin Durant practiced yesterday. He's now listed as questionable tonight in Toronto. Question is, how effective will he be? Nick Wright, is Kevin Durant's return the only chance the Warriors have at this point?
It's the start of every chance they have. Any chance they have starts with Kevin Durant playing tonight. And it's almost impossible, but it's very simple. KD comes back tonight. You use that energy to get a win. You're then back at home. Game 6, you're not going to lose the last game ever at Oracle, right? And now all of a sudden it's a Game 7 with a chance for everyone on the Warriors to get what they always wanted. For the Warriors, you avenge your 3-1 loss. For KD, oh, you never needed me? Well, you won 2 titles with me. You were down 3-1 in the finals till I came back, then reeled off 3 straight victories. Now, I think that's about a 1 in 15 chance of all those things happening, but it has to start with KD playing tonight.
Jen, I do believe they can win game number 5 without KD. I don't believe they can win the series without KD being at 100%. And now that Toronto has 3 wins, man, this series is a matter before which day the parade's going to be. All right, they got 2 games at home. They also have a game plan. This is not like Toronto is on this unbelievable shooting streak. Oh, they're shooting 45% from 3. Oh, they're shooting 52% from the field. No, they're struggling shooting the basketball in certain games, and they're still better than the Warriors.
All right, finally, with KD questionable for tonight and Klay Thompson working his way back from injury, the brunt of the work falls to Steph Curry. He was lights out in Game 3, but lights on in Game 4, if that's a thing. He scored 27 points on 22 shots and looked exhausted for much of the game. Warriors on the brink of elimination tonight. Nick, what do they need from Steph if they're going to win this game?
About 35 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Need him to go on the type of run he was on from the moment KD got hurt up until they ran into the Toronto Raptors over that 5-game stretch. Like, what do they need from Steph? What Steph has shown the ability, even though he is more prone to having a really off night in the NBA Finals or NBA playoffs, I should say, than just about any of our other great, truly great players. Game 5, their first championship year, he goes for 37-17 in the fourth quarter, critical game in that series. Game 6 this year against Houston, critical game, goes for 33 in the second half of that game. We know that Steph has it, and we saw him 47 points in a loss in game number 3, and you're spot on, Jen, in that it looked like those minutes, that workload in Game 3 was having its effects just less than 48 hours later when they played Game 4. But they're going to need Steph to be spectacular because even if they get Durant, I do agree with Cris in this regard, he's obviously not going to be 100%. The lion's share of the workload offensively is going to have to once again fall in the Golden State backcourt. So they need Steph and Klay to combine for something like 65 points if they're going to crack this Raptors nut, and that's going to be very difficult, but it's what they need.
The thing I don't like about that type of analysis that people just think that all of a sudden Draymond and Iggy and Looney, like they're going to be able to hit shots. This is not about Steph. It's not about Klay. So if what they need from Steph needs to get the other guys involved to generate some confidence in them that eventually, because they're going to get an open shot and they're going to have to be able to make it. We know Klay can score. We've seen that. He came back in Game 4 and was outstanding with 28. We saw Steph dominate game number 3, but it still didn't give confidence to the other players. If the other players don't have confidence, they're not going to win this game.
So how's he going to do that?
Get them involved early. Be more of a playmaker. Be more of a distributor from the beginning. Run some sets for them so they have some confidence because they know they can get their shot. Klay knows he can get hot. Steph knows he can get hot. And try to play at an up tempo where they can't get their defense set. That's what I believe should be the recipe for Golden State to try to get back into the series. Steph shouldn't try to find his game. Steph has his game. It's the other players, and if they can't score, it puts so much pressure on Steph and on Clay, because when you get to the critical juncture of the game, are you going to pass the ball? No. And that's what we've seen the other players. When KD got hurt, Steph was nice, but guess what Draymond did? Draymond was dominant. We haven't seen Draymond be that way, especially on the offensive end. So I believe that the others, and trying to put positive energy into them, because they have not been good, even though Steph has been good and Clay has been good. So I believe even if they're good together, it's not enough to get through Toronto.
But so I agree with you that in order to win this game in Toronto, assuming that KD, if he plays, is going to be a compromised version of himself, everyone has to play well, something they haven't been able to do in this series. 16 quarters, Raptors have won how many of them?
13.
13. But do you, on Steph Curry, do you think no matter how well the other guys play, there is a realistic path to victory for the Warriors that doesn't involve Steph scoring at least 30? Because I don't. I think
they only 30 is 30 in the NBA game for a superstar. That's what we expect. They're challenged offensively. Who else is going to score for them?
Right. Well, to me, that's the exact point I'm making.
But you can get 30 by not being aggressive early. All right? Like, if they don't have any confidence, that doesn't help the Warriors. If Steph scores 15 in the first quarter, you think that helps the Warriors out more so than if Draymond had 8, Iggy had 6, Looney had 6?
No, I understand that, but I think one is far more realistic than the other. Draymond's shooting 18% from 3 this series. Iggy is shooting 23% from 3 this series. I don't think
so. The conversation is, how does Golden State win? Let's move Steph out of it. How do they win? The others must play well. Because Steph can play well and they still lose.
Steph can play well and they still lose, but Steph cannot play poorly and have them win.
He played poorly and gave you 27 in the last game.
Yes.
And they lost. Hold on. This is not complicated. If Steph doesn't play well, they're drawing dead. If Steph plays well, they can still lose. But the first thing that has to happen for Golden State tonight is Steph has to be sensational. That's not too much of an ask.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I disagree. I believe he needs to defer to the other players. Now, you need to be sensational so we don't come down on you and criticize you. But the best game plan is for him, let the game come to him, get these other guys involved.
Early.
Toronto will not be expecting that. Play off the break, play at an accelerated pace, get these other guys, defer to them. Because we know Steph can get hot at any time. I believe that's how they win the game compared to what does Steph need to do tonight. If Steph needs to do something, be a playmaker early, all right? And then hunt your shot later on.
Make sure you check us out tomorrow. 8-time All-Star Dwight Howard joins the show. Gonna be a fun chat. First things first, tune in. All right, back here with Sarah Kustok. To say the Warriors could use a shot of Kevin Durant would be an understatement at this point. They might get that shot tonight. KD questionable after practicing yesterday. There's reportedly, though, been doubt and angst and even some confusion over his availability of late. Some of that head-scratching coming from Durant's teammates. Sarah, what was your reaction when you heard this?
I have trouble. I have all the respect in the world for journalists who are there every day in getting a chance to come up with reports like this. I just have trouble with it because the players that are at this level, particularly someone like Kevin Durant, no one knows his body better than him. I don't think, and from all accounts of the Warriors and the Warriors side, it's not just Kevin Durant's decision on whether or not he will play. So I believe that if he were healthy, if he were ready enough to play, that he would be on the floor. So I don't like to speculate about injuries. I don't like to speculate about players. I tore my calf. I know you said you tore both of yours. There was instances where it's not a pain tolerance thing. It just does not trigger. It simply does not work and allow you to do the things that you need to do on the floor to perform. So is frustration, they're frustrated at Kevin. Is frustration, they're just frustrated that the series is at what it is and he hasn't been able to be on the floor? Are they frustrated for him? The fact that he maybe thought he was able to go back and it seemed like there was a setback? That's more of my opinions on that. I have a hard time necessarily believing that teammates think that if he could and should be on the floor playing, that someone like him, who was playing at the level he was at the early part of the postseason, wouldn't be out there.
But, yes, I give Kevin Durant that. But each of us as players, we have a group of people that travels around with us. And just because you believe that doesn't mean someone in your group is saying, you know something, if this was Clay, if it was Steph, if it was Draymond, because they've all, besides Steph, have been, man, warriors on, I mean, not to use the play on words, but they have really been very, very tough, dependable basketball players. Kevin Durant's hurt, though. And what you're talking about as far as the calf, people might think, oh, it's just a strain. Like, you don't get any lift. You can't get any lift. You can't get off the ground. You can't dorsiflex your foot and go down and explode, because then you're afraid your Achilles is going to tear. So there's a couple mental things that go with tearing your calf or straining your calf. So I don't believe Kevin Durant could play. I believe he was out there. I believe basketball is his safe haven. I believe it's the spot in his life that he is the most comfortable. And to think that an elite athlete, potentially the best player in the world, wouldn't be out there on the court, to me, it's idiotic. And I'll take you back to a lot of the things that happened to Kawhi. When did Kawhi's reputation start taking a hit? Based on an injury. Based on the staff thought that he should be out there. The coaching staff thought he should be out there. Then they had Tony Parker chime in. That was probably the message of someone on the staff to say, oh, my Kawhi was 100 times worse than that. That's when Kawhi took it personal that, man, I feel insulted. Someone is saying that I don't have sports integrity. Someone is saying that I could be out there playing and I'm healthy. And that's how Kawhi ended up in Toronto. I'm not going to do this to Kevin Durant. It's not fair, even though there might be some idiots in the locker room or part of the group of guys in the locker room that hang with the players that think that. But Kevin Durant, I believe he could be out there. He'd be out there.
But unlike the Kawhi situation, Nick, Kevin Durant's training staff has not given him the okay. And it's important to know this isn't Kevin Durant's decision.
Well, so it's not Kevin Durant's decision, and these reports are they're written very interestingly, because to me, and I've been following this league long enough to know how some of these things come about, which is a guy tells you off the record or on background, we're surprised he's not out there. And if I'm being honest with you, we think if it were Clay, if it were Iguodala, if it were Draymond, they'd be out there. But on the record, man, the trainer has not cleared him, and he is not allowed to play until the trainer clears him. Because it's not unfair to say this. And by the way, I agree 100% that if Kevin Durant thought he could play, he would be playing. Now, then we get into the different dynamics of, well, do you need to just convince yourself you can play? Because there's clearly been, something has been amiss here. From the initial diagnosis of, man, we dodged a bullet, not only because it wasn't a torn Achilles, but because it's not a significant tear, it is just whatever grade 1 or strain that they called it, to we could see him game 1 of the finals, to game 3's on the board, game 4's probable, and now it's game 5 and he hasn't played yet. Something has happened there. But think about the comments they used when Clay got hurt. And this is just, in everything in life, if there's one extreme, there's another, the yin to the yang, if you will. When Clay got hurt, everyone on the team was adamant. Clay is the type of guy that will fight through anything and everything, do everything you can to get back on the court. That then is a spectrum. And if Clay is at one end of the spectrum, I don't think anyone is saying Kevin Durant is at the polar opposite end, which is, oh my God, my big toe hurts a little bit, I'm going to sit this one out. But is he 70% of the way on the spectrum of where Clay is? Is he a guy who needs to feel Clay just has to be playable? And does KD have to feel a little more comfortable? It seems to me that's what these reports are implying, is that there are players on the team that feel like, damn it, man, it's the finals. And contrary to what Draymond said back in October, we actually do need you. So can you come out here? And so I think that's where these are coming from. And again, to quote Slim Charles, even if it's a lie, we fight on the lie. Sometimes the lie, even if it's not the truth, starts to matter a lot. And if the feeling within the locker room is he should be out there, then that's extra external pressure on Durant.
To me, these things are easy. Let's just look at history. You tell me one elite athlete that's faked an injury out of a competition like this. Just tell me one.
But do you think does it have to be a faking of an injury as opposed to a unwillingness to, I don't think anyone on the Warriors think he faked it, but an unwillingness to fight through it for that last 10%.
Then we would think that Kevin Durant hasn't fought through anything his whole life to be where he is. Like, why would we grant Clay more grace than we're going to grant Kevin Durant? Like, why would we do that? Because we like Clay more. Why? Why would we?
Oh, I think it would be the track record, right? That Clay had been, we saw Clay suffer an injury in game 1 of the finals last year that I think a lot of people thought was keeping him out for game 2.
We've seen a lot of players twist their ankle like that. There's a lot of different severities to it. Kevin Durant, after the game, they thought he tore his Achilles. After the game with the Warriors, Clay said, I'll be able to play in the next game. He still wasn't able to play. The severity of the injuries, they're not even in the same stratosphere. As far as, I strain my hamstring all the time. Man, my calves, oh man, that was besides my broken collarbone, that's the most significant injury that I've ever had. So let's not put them in the same class.
I think don't put them in the same class. And I keep, who are we to determine how bad an injury is that he can't be? And Clay is. He is an absolute Iron Man. He will play in any account. But I don't think that you can compare, well, Clay would be out here. We think that I don't even think it's for us to try to speculate on what a guy can do.
Nick, you ever been sick on this show?
Like
You ever been sick? You ever been sick? You didn't come?
No.
Now imagine if you was in the NBA Finals, much you love basketball. What would it take to get?
No, I agree.
I'm just trying to appropriate this to you.
Of course, I agree, C, but I think I think, because I was about to use an example from you. Tell me if I'm right on this. One of the things you take as much pride in as just about anything in your career is that you were out there. You talk about you broke a collarbone, you had to miss time.
I'm a different dude, man.
Right.
I ain't like them.
Of course. So that's the point I'm making, is that it's not me questioning it. This would not have come up if it wasn't the Kawhi'S and Angst report. If there are versions of Cris Carter, the NBA version, I know they're all soft or whatever.
I don't think I would be playing like Kevin Durant. When Kevin Durant got hurt, I came on the show the next day and
said he's done for the year. Absolutely.
You said he wasn't.
You said he was done for the year, but the point that I'm making is that even if that is the fair truth, we know there are guys that are, how hard will you fight through it? And it appears there are guys with the Warriors saying Durant's not fighting as hard as other guys would. And that might be wildly unfair to him.
It is unfair.
Okay.
It is unfair, and we shouldn't even represent that. We have never seen an elite athlete in this type of competition pull himself out. We've had a couple people say things about elite athletes, but they don't have any type of clue of what he's going through. Let me tell you right now, there is no one in more pain, no one more let down in the world than Kevin Durant. They're playing basketball and he can't play. He's getting ready to get MVP for the 3rd time. Steph can't carry them. All the stats, everyone's run off they're better without KD. Where the stats at now? Everybody begging, can he limp out there? Oh, now he wasn't hurt. Oh, Clay is tougher than him. Where are your stats out now that, this Golden State team's a better team? Where are your stats at now when you need them? Huh? That Kevin Durant is hurt, and if he wasn't hurt, he would be out there. That's the most obvious thing in this finals that we've seen.
Tiger Woods returns to Pebble Beach, the site of his most dominant major win. The U.S. Open begins Thursday on Fox FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
I watched Tiger Woods win a U.S. Open on a broken leg and a torn ACL. Now that's a warrior.
Talking Game 5 with Sarah Kustok here. Warriors now on the brink of elimination. A lot of questions surrounding the core of this Golden State team, which continues to age and which might lose KD this summer to the East Coast. Andre Iguodala stressed that win or lose, he would be around for one last ride.
I'll be here next year for sure, and I'm pretty confident that we'll have our core back, and we'll try to make another run at it. But our key right now is to focus in on tomorrow's game and the things we can do to try to keep the season going.
Sarah Kustok, do you think the Warriors' dynasty is on the line tonight?
Yeah, very much so. How we look at them, what their legacy will be. There's been different iterations of this team, but Andre Iguodala brought up the core. I think one of the most important words you mentioned in leading us into this is they're aged. So even though if you have the same guys back, and Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, we're already seeing this in the way in which Draymond Green hasn't had quite the same impact throughout the course of the finals. Andre Iguodala not having quite the same impact. Sean Livingston, one of those players early on that who knows how much longer he'll have left. And then, of course, the big question of Kevin Durant. And I think most of us, if we are, betting on will he take the field or will he be at Golden State, he probably will be elsewhere. So, yeah, absolutely. And they could put together a magical storybook finish to this season, coming back from a 3-1 deficit. They did it, of course, in Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City. A few years back, they've seen it done to them with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I do think how we remember this group, a lot of it is because of injuries, because of the players they don't have. They lack depth because of the guys they needed to sign and where things sit financially. But this will be a true testament to what they are at this point.
And if they were to come back, then you put this 5 years against any 5 years ever for any team.
100%.
You have 4 out of 5 titles. You have the 1 year you didn't win the title. You had the most regular season wins ever. You would three-peat with a comeback from 3-1 in the finals. The only time that's ever been done in NBA history was 2U in this stretch. That's what happens if they somehow find a way to win it. And for Kevin Durant, assuming part of the comeback is he comes back and plays well, if not extraordinarily, it is the almost the ideal way for Kevin Durant's season to have ended, which was, oh, y'all didn't need me, even when I was averaging 39, 5, and 5. This guy said you're a luxury, not a necessity. Now, how much do you need me? How do you like me now? But if they don't win, then it was an unbelievable run and a great run. But there's a real question of, was this 5-year run even better than LeBron's 5-year run? LeBron in 5 years won 3 titles, won 2 MVPs, went to 5 NBA finals. The Warriors in 5 years would have won 3 titles, had a couple MVPs, both by Steph. They went to 5 finals. They would have been almost identical from LeBron's last 3 years with the Heat and 2 with the Cavs to what the Warriors are through right now. And the only reason I'm not going to say yes if they lose tonight or Thursday or Sunday, it's over, is if they get back to the NBA Finals next year, then I don't think you say the dynasty's over, just like it didn't end in 2016. But that's going to be hard to get back next year when we know what team they're going to have. Like, with respect to Andre Iguodala, who's one of my favorite players, I'll tell you one of the reasons he's coming back. Hard to make $17 million doing something else. And when he makes 17 and Draymond makes 18 and Clay's about to make 30 and Steph makes 40, that's $105 million. The cap's 109. That's assuming Livingston retires. So they don't have a lot of flexibility to add someone major. So yeah, the dynasty can go on life support tonight, and then they can have a chance to resuscitate it next season, but with a far greater margin of difficulty or degree of difficulty next season, assuming they lose tonight, Thursday, or Sunday.
Yeah, it's been a remarkable run. It's been remarkable to cover them. Even before they added KD, they were remarkable. They played with a sense in basketball that, remember, this system can't win. You can't shoot 3-pointers. You can't play at that type of pace. You can't play basketball in the NBA and be efficient doing this. We've seen people for the year struggle doing it. Somehow, they put enough passing with the 3-point shooting and elite defense and special type players that they were able to do it. So that makes them special. As far as the argument, were they better than LeBron? That's for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. We won't have nothing else to talk about. But this is the most dominant 5 years that I have seen. And I watched Michael Jordan. I was right there with Michael. I was there with Kobe and Shaq. I saw LeBron and them had season tickets. I mean, this fight, as far as the lack of hope of anybody else winning, I haven't seen an era like that. So to me, when they took the air out of the ball as if they were going to win almost all the time. Before we started the season, it's just a matter of, we're going to crown them to be champion. No, we didn't have that in any other year. So it's been a special, special time. And Kevin Durant, when he leaves, that era will change. Their core group will be back. They will be a playoff team. Can they make a deep playoff run? That will be the question for next year's Warriors.
And I think it's important they really changed the way in which the game has played and how many other teams have tried to replicate their style and the movement. And that was said. The jump shooters and a jump shooting team cannot win the title. And we've seen the way in which Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have often been talked about as one of, if not one of the best backcourts. So there are so many things that we will remember in the legacy that they will have, which is still continuing to be written. But I do think at this point there's going to be a lot of questions at when this ends.
Who do you think's coming back next year in the West? I'm just curious.
In the West or for the Warriors?
Which team
Some
do you
of the
think will
top
get back
teams?
to? No, which team do you think get back to the finals?
At this point, I would look at it. I think there's so much movement that could be made, but I would bet on the Warriors at this point, just because, and to your point, that's a great question, Jenna. They still will be one of the favorites, but who do the Clippers get? What happens with the Lakers?
Yeah.
How does Houston change things up? What does Oklahoma City look like? Is Portland and Denver? Those are two teams.
And regardless, the road will be tougher because the 8th seed, the 7th seed, the 6th seed, I believe will be a lot better than they've been previous years.
And Chris, you can believe, and I think a lot of people probably do, that even if they lose this title, this is the best 5-year stretch that there's ever been. But it will not be definitive. There will be teams that were the Lakers of the early 2000s say, hold up, we won 3 in a row and also got back to an NBA Finals. The Spurs in the 2000s.
Everyone will be able to argue, but I'll just tell you, it was an argument for second place in these last 5 years. In those eras, there were legitimate championship caliber. I mean, you could make an argument for several teams. That's what I say is the difference.
Sure, agreed, but what will put that in stone is a 4th title. Because without the 4th title, we can say it was an argument for second place, except 2 of the 5 years, it was a fight for first place. And there's a bunch of teams that have won 3 titles in 5 years. Spurs did it 03, 05, 07. Lakers three-peated. The Bulls did it obviously twice. The Lakers in the 80s. This is going for history in a multitude of ways now over the next 6 days for Golden State, with their toughest test in these finals that we've seen in this entire run.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.